Good evening. Record wholesale inflation has been reported at 12.9% for the month of May. The wholesale inflation has spiked to 12.9% versus 10.4% in April. Fuel and power have caused this spike. Fuel and power inflation has in fact spiked to 37.6% versus 20.9% in April. Economists say that the rise in oil prices, a weaker rupee and an upward revision in fuel rates remain key risk factors. Well, joining us now, Mr. P Chidambaram, the former Finance Minister of India, Rajya Sabha MP of the Congress Party. Thanks so very much for being with us. Yes. Now, the government says the rise in the wholesale price index is caused by an aberration due to a low base effect and a rise in crude petroleum, mineral oils, furnace oils, etc. How would you react to this, that there was a low base effect, which is why this is being, it's exaggerated in a sense in the way that it appears?
This government's economic policy is an aberration. Everything that goes wrong is an aberration. And everything will go wrong if your basic analysis of the economy is wrong. You just now said, and I heard you say that, crude oil prices have gone up, the value of the rupee is depreciated, and on the back of that, if you increase fuel prices practically every day, or every other day certainly, there will be inflation, which is why the fuel and power basket, you didn't say the number, it is 37.61%. Yeah. If fuel and power is 37.61%, it has got a cascading effect on every price. Vegetable, fruit, transport, travel, every price has a cascading effect. Unlike some other price rises, any increase in the price of fuel has a huge cascading effect. Okay. I think this elementary economics is completely escaping the government.
So here's something else which they've said, and my questions are based largely on an explanation provided by the government on these prices. So this is something else they've said. They've said since the movement of people has been restricted due to regional lockdowns, the increase in fuel prices will have a limited impact on the pockets of people. How would you respond?
This is complete rubbish. The lockdown conditions are different from state to state. For example, in Tamil Nadu, there is no restriction on intra-district movement. There is few restrictions on inter-district movement. Trains are running, aeroplanes are running, maybe a limited number. So, depends on the restrictions in different states. There is no uniform set of restrictions all over the country. So how does the government of India make a claim that movement has been restricted all over India?
Okay. They say it is additionally the responsibility of states to rationalize the tax on petrol and diesel to control these prices and therefore to enable and facilitate the movement of people. How much leeway do states have in terms of taxation on fuel and diesel?
Very little, and I'll tell you why. I'm not denying that states have also imposed taxes, but they have followed the pattern of the central government. And why have they imposed taxes? Let me give you just some numbers. The cost of crude oil plus refinery cost plus commission, dealer's commission, comes to about 40 rupees a litre. On that, the central government has imposed a tax of 32 rupees. Much of it is cess, which is not shared with the state government. If you imposed it directly as an excise duty and shared it with the state governments don't have to impose additional taxes. Once they get a very small share, a pittance, according to the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, he gets something like 1.5 rupees out of 33. Therefore, the states have no option but to impose taxes. You show the way by reducing the taxes on petrol and diesel, and then there is moral pressure on the states also to make a proportionate reduction in the taxes imposed by the state. Yeah. In fact, the Tamil Nadu has said, we will reduce petrol and diesel prices by reducing our tax. Their budget is due in about 10 days. We'll have to wait for the budget. But then why doesn't the central government show the way by reducing the prices, reducing the taxes on petrol and diesel?
No, you make an important point. because the prices of taxes, the prices of fuel and diesel need to be rationalized. I was just going through some numbers. In Delhi, for example, petrol is at 96 rupees a litre, of which taxes are at 52.7%. That's incredible.
Correct.
Now, obviously, centre and state. Now, diesel in Delhi, 87 rupees a litre. Taxes are at 39%. You know, so and then of course there is a dealer commission also, which is a certain charge that goes in. So when one talks about rationalizing fuel prices, you know, it needs to be done holistically, right? Would you agree that? But you say that the centre needs to set the example.
Look at the numbers on your screen.
Yeah.
If you add these crude and dealer commission, as I said, it comes to about 40 rupees a litre.
Yeah.
Centre's taxes is 32 rupees. State taxes are 12.50. So you show the way by reducing your taxes and then pressure bills on the state government to make a proportionate reduction. But if you don't reduce the taxes, why would the state reduce the taxes?
Okay.
You are the central government.
Let's look at a few of the other points which have come up. They say that the month-over-month change in the wholesale production index for the month of May this year as compared to April last month was just 0.76%.
See, this month-on-month, year-on-year is very deceptive. More and more economists are now looking at sequential, month by month or quarter by quarter. See, these are playing with numbers. Yes, year-on-year, month-on-month has a certain relevance, but that's not the only comparison you should make. You should also look at it sequentially, month after month after month. So what was May compared to April of this year? What was April compared to March? You see, when I spend money, when inflation pinches me, I'm not looking at last May, I'm looking at last month.
Right.
I'm looking at last week, isn't it? Therefore, look at it sequentially. If you look at it sequentially, this is the fifth straight month in which WPI spiked. Yeah. So January, February, March, April, May.
So it's not enough to say it's gone up narrowly over last month. You have to look at the trend, right? It's also gone up over the previous 4 months prior to that as well.
It's an increase, isn't it?
I didn't see that number. Thanks, Mr. Chidambaram, for pointing it out. Also, food inflation has remained, this is what they're saying, food inflation has remained under control, limiting pressure on the vulnerable section of our society.
No, I don't. Food inflation, according to the numbers put out today, is about 4.31%. So 4% on food inflation is pretty high because the bulk of the domestic expenditure is on food for the lower middle class and the poor classes. As much as 60–70% is on food, and that inflation is pretty high. I just want to add another thought, and you might want to take it forward with other participants. You see, because of the wrong fiscal policy, they are not willing to do a fiscal expansion. You are tying the hands of the RBI. RBI is unable to depart from its accommodative monetary policy. RBI can raise bank rates a little to control inflation, but only if some of the lifting is done by the fiscal side. If the fiscal side won't do any lifting, the entire burden falls on the RBI.
Now, they say as far as, you know, food prices, they've said the food index, which consists of food articles from the primary articles group and food products from the manufactured products group have decreased by 0.19% from 158.9 in April to 158.6. So it's very small, but they say it's gone down.
Look at the numbers I have. Pulses inflation is 9.39%. Edible oil is 30%. So what does the average homemaker consume? Pulses, edible oil, apart from cereal. Therefore, if pulses and edible oil are 9.3 and 30%, see, food is a big basket.
Right.
It includes even exotic things like dates and figs and chocolate milk. That's not the way to look at it. Look at the breakdown of the food inflation. Look at the items which are consumed by the poor, the lower middle class, and the middle class. Pulses and edible oils 9.39 and 30%. That puts a huge burden upon the average homemaker belonging to the middle class and the poorer sections.
One or two final questions. They say that Amidst the rising fuel prices, the railways has been able to support logistics efforts in a cost-efficient manner, primarily because of a significant portion of the network has been electrified, thereby insensitive to rising diesel prices. So they're basically saying that as far as the government, the railways are part of the government, is concerned, they are less impacted in the railways for the movement of essential items and goods because of electrification.
You can't look at it like you take a snapshot. The railway finances
The cherry-picking information is what you're suggesting.
Yes. Railway information has to be tested at the end of the year when we see the railways receipts and expenditure. If the railway is making huge losses or is borrowing money through the Railway Finance Corporation, that puts pressure on the fisc, isn't it? Therefore, don't look at I've reduced platform ticket by ₹1. That is not the way to look at data. These are all data scraps. The entire railway data will have to be seen at the end of the year, whether the railway has functioned efficiently as well as profitably. That has to be seen at only the end of the year. It can't be seen every week or every month.
All right. All right. Well, Mr. Chidambaram, I was just about to finish that interview. Thanks very much, sir, for being with us, sharing your perspective on a couple of key issues there. Thank you very much indeed.